Hi everyone, Brickwaffle here. What I wanted to show you today is our Nether Keep Alive system that we use on the Wolfraven server. We use this because we're using one of the Iron Foundries that requires many villages. It's TangoTek's Iron Foundry design. I think there's 44 villages in that one. And the reason you want a Nether Keep Alive system is that right now, if you're on a multiplayer server and everyone that's currently online leaves the overworld and goes to the Nether, the overworld will pause after 60 seconds and then resume when you come back. Now that doesn't sound like a big deal, except that in designs like that where villagers are sort of tricked into keeping 44 villages open and overlapping, when you pause the overworld and reload, it can sometimes cause those villages to merge as villagers are told to redetect all the villages by the server. So instead of letting the overworld ever pause, what we do is we have a system set up in the Nether and in the overworld so that an item comes through the Nether portal into the overworld on a regular timer, less than 60 seconds, and that keeps the overworld from ever pausing. So what you're looking at here is a portal design. It's got some hoppers in front. All of those obviously point around to the back. They point into a series of 2 droppers, and you may recognize this from the pulse clock tutorial I did earlier. This simply fires anything that comes into these droppers back through the Nether. The magic really happens on the other side, and what we have over here is a similar array, but this time instead of a simple pulse clock, we've got an Etho Timer. Now this one is going pretty quickly, just so you can see that it's going back and forth. For those of you that aren't familiar with Etho Timers, those were developed by one of our Minecraft Redstone wizards, Etho. I'll put the link to his video in the description. But basically these are 2 hoppers pointing into each other with some comparators that power a block that goes back and forth. Obviously whenever that redstone block is in this position, it triggers these droppers. Now that does give a single pulse, and it's a steady pulse, so it won't fire up into both dispensers. So what you usually do to do that is just put more than one item in here, so that while one is firing out, the next one is going up into the dropper above it. And you can see that it does fire out on a pretty regular basis. You can watch it going out again here and there, and it will fire out from the overworld back in here. So you do want to have a few items in here to compensate for lag, or to compensate if something really strange happens, like it bounces on one of these hoppers for a few seconds before it finally decides that it wants to go into one of them. But you will see that if we stand here long enough, items do come through. They sometimes appear to bounce onto the hoppers and then disappear. Sometimes they disappear into the overworld right away. That's just an issue with the display of the item. As soon as it touches this portal, it is in fact in the overworld. The way I can prove that to you is that if I check these droppers, you can see there's one item in my inventory, and you will occasionally see another one come into these droppers here. There's one, it goes through. So obviously there's not a stack in here that keeps getting triggered. It is in fact going through. There's nowhere else for it to be going unless it was, of course, shooting out and catching on this side. If I stand here, you'll see that I don't actually catch the item. So it definitely is not coming through onto the hopper side. It's definitely going into the overworld. I can do a tutorial for this as well, but most of what I'm going to do is in several parts because I don't think it makes sense to put it all together in one tutorial. Part of the challenge of this sort of design is you have to do a little bit of testing to figure out where an item comes through in the Nether. It's not always consistent in the way it's facing, so north in the overworld does not always come out north in the Nether and vice versa. So when you build this design, it makes the most sense to build the dispenser area first, and just manually fill it and fire it with a button to make sure that you know where it's coming out before you start placing all your hoppers. Let me go back through to the overworld, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So obviously in this design, the first thing you want to do is build your Nether portal, and then, like I said, you want to build your droppers. And what this is just a single dropper facing upward, and a dropper facing into your portal. Oops. You want to do that before you light your portal, obviously, because you won't be able to click and put things on the portal frame, or it will actually attach to the portal block itself, which is kind of strange, but you won't be able to place one on the other side. So you do that part first, and in the overworld, we build this very simple pulse clock, which is, as I've shown in one of my previous videos, just a comparator, and then a repeater, another repeater coming in the side of it, and some redstone dust connecting that all together. And what that will do is anytime there's an item in here, it will just keep firing until it's out of items. For the overworld side, that's what we want. We don't want anything to stay in the overworld, we just want it to go back into the Nether to be used as basically ammunition for the next pulse. The hopper arrays are also pretty straightforward. You simply start at the back of one hopper, and attach it holding shift, and then keep holding shift, and make your little array around the Nether portal, however big you need to do. I usually try to go 2 blocks out, just in case something comes through from the Nether and shoots out over the first set of hoppers. It does happen from time to time. I've never needed to add a third, or I've never seen an item go further than that. So that should be sufficient. On the nether side, you're going to want to basically do the same thing. You're going to want to put a dropper facing up, a dropper facing into your portal. This one you may have to break and then relight because it will be created as soon as you go through the first time. If you've already got two portals that are synced up, same thing. You just want to break that briefly and then relight it when you're done. But once you have this dropper array, you'll do the same thing with the hoppers to fill it. The only difference here is the way you power it. So you can take this little redstone signal into your dropper, and then you're going to use an Etho hopper clock, and I'll go back into the overworld where I have a little bit more room to show you how to build one of those. So with the Etho hopper clock, there's only really a couple of components here. The first thing you need is a redstone block. You need a little bit of redstone. You need comparators, solid block, and some sticky pistons. So usually what I like to do is line up where I'm going to have my output. So imagine if I was powering my droppers here. Instead of using the overworld design with the pulse repeater, you just have a single redstone block there. That will power your dispensers, or your droppers rather. So with the sticky piston, you just want that facing in towards it, and then one block away facing in the other direction, and that way it can go back and forth, and it will only power this in one position. You want a block on either side of that. Redstone dust on either side of that. Oops, I'm sorry, I have that backwards. Blocks here, redstone dust on either side of that, and then we simply want our comparators pointing into those blocks, and then we just need to grab a couple of hoppers. So shift-click into the first hopper, shift-click into the second hopper, and then you just need to put a stack of items in there of some kind. The more items you put in here, the longer it will take between pulses, but you can see right away, as soon as it starts powering one of those, the block moves. You can see that it's counting up, and then when it starts counting down the other way, it switches to the other side. And so that's our timer. As soon as the items flow from one hopper to the other, it will toggle. It will cause that to power this redstone. It will toggle back, unpowering that. The other thing to note is that that power does stop this hopper, so nothing will come in until it's in this unpowered state, which is another reason why you need more than one item to come through here. 3 is best, so that way you can always have one locked in the hopper, one in the lower dropper, one in the upper dropper. And that way every time you pulse, you move the whole chain forward 1. If you have 2 items like I had in the other demo, you will occasionally have this fire with nothing in it. That depends on your timing. If you have a short enough timer, it really won't matter. You can wait for 3 pulses before it fires through on one timer, or you can put 3 items in it. What you put in the droppers doesn't matter at all. Any item in the game works just fine as long as it can be fired out from a dropper. The reason you use droppers and not dispensers is if you happen to use a bucket of lava or water, it would actually pour that out and break your portal. Droppers just throw the item right back out through. So this is really it. This is all there is to it. This timer is great. Etho uses this for a lot of things. If you watch any of the Hermitcraft videos, a lot of those hermits use this as well. It's a very popular timer. I would actually be kind of surprised if you haven't seen that before. But that design works very well for keeping the Nether alive and keeping the overworld alive when you're in the Nether. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. If you like this video, do give it a like. If you really liked it, you can make it a favorite. I'd appreciate it if you subscribe and want to see more videos from me. As always, your suggestions are welcome. I've been Brickwaffle. Thank you for watching.